Gretchen. I just gotten out of the shower this morning when my mother came rushing into my bathroom, all excited as usual. Gretchen, Tina Atwood just canceled on me. I've got no one to hold a sign in Precinct 4 this afternoon. I pulled one of my big towels off the rack and wrapped myself up. Mother, could you just at least knock? Sorry, she said, but you could tell she was hardly even knew she was saying it. For what reason? She was all worked up like she can only think about one thing, and everybody else better care about that one thing as much as she does. I remember my dad telling her that before he moved out a few years ago. You're a force to be reckoned with, Mimi. I just got tired of doing so much reckoning. Get Quincy to drive you to the polling place after school, she continued. You'll take over from Carol Modena from 3 to 5. I thought you said I could poll watching this afternoon in Precinct 1. Poll watching's a lot easier. You get to sit down inside a building for one thing, and all you do is keep track of who's voted and who hasn't. Then at dinner time, Mom gets the statistics and calls up any of our supporters who haven't voted yet and guilt trips them into getting their rears down there before the polls close at 8 o'clock. I can get an older person to do that, somebody who hasn't trouble standing outside for 2 hours. I don't even know where Precinct 4 is, I said. They vote in Albert School. You know, over by Bailey Street. No. Oh, Mom, come on. I can't stand over there all afternoon. Everybody in that neighborhood is against us. That's not true. We have supporters there. Maybe 2 people. Really, I don't want to. But she wasn't debating the issue with me. I wasn't being ordered. Take an hour for dinner, and then I'd like you to be at Precinct 1 for the evening hours. Holding a sign? You present in good front of us, Gretchen. I'm sure nobody will heckle you. She turned around to go, then remembered another command. Oh, and wear that nice dress, honey. It reflects better on us. Are you kidding? I chased her in the hallway. It's November. I can't stand outside for 4 hours in a dress. She gave me one of her looks of barely contained disgust. Well, you could. It wouldn't kill you. But if you won't, then wear the dressy pants silk or something. Now, don't keep talking to me. I've got too much to do this morning. That was how the day began. It didn't improve much when Quincy came to pick me up for school. I'll admit I was grumpy, which started everything off wrong. How come O'Neill always rides with this Christine now? I said, instead of hello. Quincy's smile faded. I don't know, I guess they're friends. That's weird. As soon as he says he's gay, he gets a girlfriend? What do you care? All you think about is O'Neill. Don't be ridiculous, I said, and started out the window. Gloomy for most of the ride. I remember why I was so grouchy. Could you give me a ride to the Ebernet School after this afternoon? I have to be there by 3 o'clock. He looked at me as if I'd asked for a kidney. I have practice after school, you know that. You usually drop me off at home. Yeah, your house is on the way to the field, but Ebernet School is across the town. Coach will have a fit if we're late. Well, we wouldn't want that. Just drop me off at home then. I'll get my own car. Yes, Your Majesty, anything you say. I wasn't sure if Quincy had been in a bad mood to begin with, or if mine had just infected him. That's not how I meant it. I know you're playing football in less than noble activity than the way you spend your time protecting your rights as a wealthy homeowner. It seemed like I couldn't please anybody anymore, or I just couldn't stand it. Pull over. I mean it. Pull over. I will walk the rest of the way. Which I did. Not too meaningful a gesture, however, since we were only halfway a block from school. Precinct 4, I got there faster than I intended to because, of course, Quincy was waiting to drive me home the minute I got out. He even offered to drive me all the way to Ebernet School, after all. His way of making up. This is why I fell for him in the first place. I knew we didn't have much in common, but he was the sweetest guy I'd ever met. And of course, the fact that he's a hunk didn't hurt either. We were a little more cordial to each other in the car, but I didn't let him drive me to Ebernet School. Partly it was a pride thing, and partly I'd been thinking I ought to have my car there anyway so I could make a quick getaway. Chances are my mother would forget all about the adrenaline rush of voting today. Carol Medina was thrilled I was early. She'd taken my mother's fashion advice and was standing on the curb in her best blue suit, rubbing one high-end foot up down the other leg, trying to get some circulation going before switching feet. She'd been giving up on holding the sign and was leaning on it to keep her balance. "Oh, thank God you showed up, Gretchen. It was sunny when I got here, but now I'm a popsicle." She shoved the sign at me. "It's not just a name, it's an identity. Vote Folly Bay." Mom's slogan, of course. I've been working on Folly Bay Committee for so long that sometimes I forgot what it was about, something more than just winning this vote. Mom made it seem so important, our identity. But at that moment, I wonder if it really made much of a difference one way or another. "Weren't you smart to wear long pants and a coat?" Miss Modena said. Of course I didn't say, "Weren't you stupid not to?" I just smiled, presenting my good front. She disappeared into her long black car before it occurred to me to thank her for noticing my good sense. Nobody else had done that recently. There was a skinny woman I didn't know holding the other sign on that said, "If you are proud of your own town, vote Scrub Harbor." Which seemed beside the point. I'm proud of my own town. I just think it could have had a better name. I hated how the whole thing had gotten twisted into who lived there the longest and who was the most loyal. The town was more than just a name, wasn't it? The skinny woman didn't even look at me. I figured it would be a quiet 2 hours anyway, which was fine with me. But just then a car pulled up, and I was not pleased to see the occupants. Christine Muser was driving with O'Neill, riding shotgun, which is fine. But then the back door opened, and who should crawl out but Georgie Pincus, the most vocal opponent of Folly Bay Committee at the high school. O'Neill saw me first. "Hey, Gretchen, are you lost? This is Precinct 4. "Don't worry," I said. "I bought a compass so I could find my way home." He laughed at my joke. I have to admit the last few weeks since he's come out, O'Neill is much more relaxed. In a funny way, he's more normal now than he was before, whatever normal is. I was just saying hi to Christine, who was a little too loud, but basically, when suddenly was Georgie Pincus glaring at me. "You're holding the other sign?" she said. Great. What was I supposed to say to that? "Somebody has to," I smiled, hoping I would kill the witch with the kindness, since I didn't have a bucket of water handy. As Georgie was negotiating the sign takeover with the skinny woman, this tall guy with very black hair got out from the back seat. He looked vaguely familiar, but I couldn't place him. He nodded silently, a little shy, I thought. "Have you met Ricardo?" O'Neill asked me. He's from Brazil, and he's staying with the Musers. "Oh, sure, you're the exchange student," I said. I remember I'd seen him at the park with Christine and Georgie on Halloween. "You're in my science class." "Yes, I am," he said, smiling. "No fraternizing with the enemy," Georgie told him. I don't think he even knew what she was talking about. Christine said O'Neill laughed as if they were joking, but it was pretty clear that she wasn't. I couldn't believe the poor guy had gotten himself mixed up with Georgie. I could just imagine what he would tell his Brazilian friends about American girls when he got home. Too bossy and no sense of humor. Christine and O'Neill drove away, honking like they were in a parade. The skinny woman left next, and pretty soon it was just me, the witch, and the exchange student looking at the long, cold 2 hours. "Many people are voting?" Ricardo asked. He had a cute way of talking. I'd only been there a few minutes, and it seems to be a pretty steady stream. "Which is good for us," Georgie said, grinning. "This is our territory." "We have our supporters here too," I said, repeating the party line I argued against only hours before. "Right," Georgie said, rolling her eyes. "You are one who liked the Folly Bay?" Ricardo asked me. I nodded. "My mother and I helped organize the Folly Bay Committee. We hoped by changing the name of the town, we can help it to realize all of its potential. I could hardly believe I'd said that. It was one of my mother's favorite phrases, which I thought sounded kind of stupid. And now I could almost hear her voice coming out of my mouth. Georgie made a noise of disgust in the back of her throat, then glanced up at Ricardo. She probably didn't want to look too obnoxious in front of her new beau. You could almost see her facial muscles trying to arrange themselves into a less crabby-looking design. Gretchen, she said, I am reasonable voice. Listen to what you're saying. It sounds like Miss Flanders is about the USISS kids, how we're in the Scrub Harbor High are helping them realize all their potential. It's condescending. They're coming all the way up here every day and doing the work, and then we're going to take credit for it? I wished I could become invisible. I couldn't bear the idea of debating these for 2 hours, especially if I had to speak in my mother's voice the whole time. One has no relation to the other, was all I said. Of course it does. You rich people think you're doing something great. You're even helping us poor folks over the side of town that hasn't reached its potential. You're going to show the way to us as a big favor, even if you don't realize it, she laughed. Maybe that's what the USISS program should do. Just change all the kids' names. Leon could become Alan. Cornell could be changed to Dave. And Shaquanda, she could be called Susie. That would be a lot cheaper than busing them all the way up here. Look, Georgie, I'm not in the mood to argue with you right now. Ricardo interrupted. We hope very much this town will still go by the name Scrub Harbor, Georgie promised me. If name stays shame, she doesn't move to California. He looked down at his little pal, who was pulling the hood of her sweatshirt up over her head. I'd be desolate if Georgie moved away. Georgie stopped fiddling and stirring with her hood, and looked up at Ricardo. Really? She said. All of the usual belligerence seemed to drain out of her face, and she studied Ricardo with a soft, almost scared look. For a minute, nobody said anything, and I was embarrassed to be looking at the two of them, but I couldn't make myself look away. Nobody had ever said anything like that to me, not even Quincy. Georgie swallowed and then said, You've learned a lot of English in the last few weeks. He picked up her sign and moved it a few yards down the block so they could teach each other a few new words. I guess without me watching, thank God. I turned to the other and started greeting people on the way. Mom had told me to, saying, Hello, how are you today? Lucky it didn't rain. Anything to make contact was the idea. I felt like such an idiot. I'd never even seen most of these people before, and I knew I wasn't holding up a sign that had much sympathy with. Most people smiled back, which I really appreciated, but the ones who didn't, the ones who turned away and gave me angry stare, made me feel terrible, like I was a kid with a lot of damn nerve. The only thing worse was watching the yellow bus roll past it on its way out of town and catching sight of Shaquanda Nichols peering out of the back window at my sign laughing. By the time my 2 hours at the Albert School were over, I had had a headache. I intended to stop at Esther's Cafe and DeCrenza restaurant for a quick dinner, a little reward before going over to Precinct 1 polls at the west end of the fire station. Instead, I went home, fed Patty Pan, took a couple ibuprofen, and lay on the couch for 45 minutes, then ate a yogurt and a few saltines driving over. At least Precinct 1 had more people were likely to be in favor of the name change, so I figured they'd be friendly. What I'd conveniently forgotten was that my mother would be at Precinct 1, running around trying to prove how indispensable she was with her cell phone permanently attached to her ear. She was scurrying back and forth between our poll watcher inside the building and the volunteer drivers waiting at the curb next to the sign holders. Anybody could call up and get a ride to the polls, of course, but Mom was more concerned about making sure her supporters got there. She was driving directions to Nelson Coolidge when I got there. Was there ever a civic duty Nelson hadn't volunteered for? He waved at me, but I guess he knew better than to interrupt. Mimi Karsten as I say hello. After he drove up to pick his customer, Mom sailed on over me. I'd just taken a sign from Miss Blackmon, who was hot-footing it to her vehicle, probably so she didn't have to buy another discussion with the boss. There you are. I was wondering what happened to you, Mom said. I looked at my watch. I'm 3 minutes late. When other people are depending on you, Gretchen, 3 minutes is a long time. I decided to let it go. There was no way to win an argument with her anyway. I learned that years ago. So, how are we doing? I asked her. She scowled. I'm not too happy. The voting numbers for the lower precinct 1 and 2 are for any other part of town. I don't understand it. I thought you said people were all in for the precincts. A few people, of course. But our base of supporters are here at our side of town. You know that. She stamped her foot. Funny how when I was 12 hours earlier, I was wrong. Like I said, I could not win an argument with this woman. Well, there was still 2 hours left, I said. Are you calling people? Gretchen, please don't tell me how to do my job. I've been on the phone for hours already. Some people are buckling out of us. People who were all along wanted the name change. Now they aren't sure. Really? Like who? Like the Pattersons, Miss Caldwell. They say they're Sarces. Your precious boyfriend's family. I would have exposed some loyalty from them. I'm not surprised about the Sarces, I said. They aren't that thrilled about the idea from the beginning. Her mouth dropped open and she puffed out a little disgusted air. If you knew what? Whose job it would change their minds? What? You expecting me to talk to Quincy's parents into voting for Folly Bay? They're adults. I was just wondering about the kids. Kids don't vote, Gretchen said. Kids don't vote. Which meant what? That all the work I've been doing at the high school for the last 6 weeks is a waste of time? Mom's phone rang, and then she had enough of me anyway, and vice versa. She stalked off. Who wouldn't change their mind after spending so many weeks listening to my mother rant? She could be annoying. Anybody would side against her. I wouldn't be surprised if half of Folly Bay Committee had decided to vote for Scrub Harbor after all, even after they didn't have the nerve to tell Mimi Carsterson. Nelson pulled up to the curb and got out, and ran around the car to open the door for his passengers, Mr. and Miss Evans. They were the kind of feeble, and Nelson helped Miss Evans and Mr. Evans up the sidewalk. They waved him away, and he called them to be sure and let them know that they wanted a ride home. Got a lot of business tonight? I called over to him. Not as much as your mom thinks I should. He came over to stand with me. I guess the Evanses and the Folly Bay supporters, but a lot of the older people I've picked up seem to be voting the other way. They say things in the car about not liking change. The good old days, you know, he shrugged. Oh well, I said. We tried. You're giving up awfully easily, Nelson was surprised. I thought you'd be at least 1 out of here fighting, dragging people out of their warm living rooms for 10 minutes of 8. I thought so too, I guess. I'm just tired. A car drove up and then parked right in front of us. How's it going? A male voice called out into the darkness. Nelson and I both leaned down and looked into the car. Adam Russell was in the driver's seat, and next to him, her eyes already glued to Nelson, Nadia Krensko. I was happier to see Adam than I wanted to see anyone to know. I didn't really want to know it myself. Ever since that day I talked to him on the beach, I've been thinking about him and wondering what he thought of me, if I seemed different to him to the kids who'd known me forever. But here he was with Nadia. I guess she turned out to be the one who looked different to him than the rest of us. We're just going out for pizza, Adam said. Nadia wanted to stop by and see how the election was going. More likely, Nadia wanted to stop by to see Nelson. Good luck to Adam if she hoped to break that spell. Not bad, I said, hugging myself. I gotten shivery all of a sudden. Could be better, but at least it's almost over. Ah, Adam said. Is this what happens to Zealot when she gets a cold? Damn, the election finds me a fireplace. Hey, you don't want to get her mad, Nelson warned Adam. She's her mother's daughter, you know. Which people say all the time, which I hate. At least Adam didn't know my mother. But I was about to contradict Nelson anyway to protest that I wasn't really that much like my mother when Nadia piped up. Nelson, are you going to the game on Friday? It was a bold move for Nadia. I was pretty sure she wouldn't have the nerve to ask him if she hadn't been in the car with Adam, on what certainly appeared to be a date. Nelson wasn't expecting it. Well, gee, I'm not sure. I need to check with Shaquanda. We were going to go together and do calculus sometime this weekend. Shaquanda? More civic duty, or did Nelson have a personal interest? You think you know people, but then they surprise you. On Friday? Nadia sounded brokenhearted. Everybody else goes to the game. The program kids usually don't, Nelson said. Did he not get that Nadia was nuts about him, or was he just ignoring it? She looked crushed. Adam and I noticed it didn't take too long to please either. Forget about him, I told myself. He pines for another. I'm going to the game, Adam said. You can come with me. Nadia smiled kind of sadly. Sure, I guess. Good, he said. I know Gretchen will be there. Can't miss her boyfriend's big game. Nope, I said. Can't miss that. I'm such a great girlfriend. Just then, Mom started yelling for Nelson. The Evansons were ready to be driven home. He said a quick goodbye and ran over to his own car. I thought Nadia would break her neck trying to keep her eyes on him. Don't be dumb, I wanted to tell her. Here's this cool guy who likes you, cooler than Nelson, who just isn't interested no matter how much you want him to be. Wake up and smell the pizza. After they left, I didn't talk to anybody else. Just stood there with my monotonous job. Hi, how you been? Nice night for November. Until about 7:45, when Mom finally came marching over. You might as well go home, she said. It's over. The town has let us down. We lost? You know already? Haven't you been listening to me? Yes, we lost. I can tell by the numbers who voted in each precinct. She heaved a weary sigh. I guess the committee just didn't work hard enough. Next year we'll start sooner. We'll go to town meetings. Well, next year? You're going to do this again? It's something I believe in, Gretchen. I thought you did too. I did, but if the town doesn't want it, it seems like a waste of time. We have to convince them that they do want it. That's where we failed. After so much work and so much lousy day, I really didn't feel like talking about where we had failed. Besides convincing people that they wanted something that they really didn't came too little too close to Georgie's analysis of the committee's intent. Mom brushed her fingers against my wrist, which for her was a heavy-duty physical contact. Of course you're focused on your immediate future, as you should be. Our next project is going to get your college applications. I can do them by myself. I don't need help. Gretchen, I've read up on this. At least I'll help you with the Wellesley application. I'm not going to Wellesley, I said. I didn't even know I'd been thinking about it, but when she said that, it was clear to me the decision had already been made. She stopped for just a second and rolled on. Don't be silly. Of course you'll get into Wellesley. With your grades and my legacy? I mean, I'm not applying. I don't want to go to Wellesley, Mother. That was your school. I want to find my own place. Gretchen, you don't know what you're talking about. Wellesley is the perfect school for you. I loved it there. She was looking at me as if I'd had a gun pointed at her head. This was definitely betrayal. I know you did, but I want my own place to love. Where would you go that's better for you? Tell me, where? I don't know, maybe someplace in California or Oregon. Someplace different. Since when have you wanted different? There was this hint of smile on her face. She thought she had me now. Then I liked being a cookie cutter. Since today, I said. She waved her hand in the air, dismissing such a silly thing. Oh well, this is a rash idea. Stemming from exhaustion, no doubt. We're all exhausted. Go get a night's rest, and then we'll attack the next project together. I handed her a sign and walked to my car. She thought she won and that I was giving in to her again. But there were other ways to win in this dispute. Maybe I looked like Mimi Casterson on the outside, but on the inside I was Gretchen whoever that might turn out to be. By 10 o'clock, Mother had rallied what was left of the Folly Bay Committee, and they were drinking coffee in our kitchen, making lists and charts and diagrams for the next year's battle. I was in my room, wrapped in my bathrobe, looking through stacks of catalogs that had arrived in the mail for the past few weeks when I was too busy to care. The ones that looked the most interesting were from Stanford, Palma, and Reed, places my mother had never even seen. When the phone rang, I knew who it would be. "Hey, Quincy," he said. "You doing okay?" "I'm fine," I said, thawing out. "I heard the returns are going against the Folly Bay." "Yeah, Scrub Harbor didn't want the new identity." "I'm sorry." "Why? Nobody in your family wanted the name changed anyway." "I know, I'm just sorry because you did want it." "You know, I'm kind of glad now that we didn't win," I said. "I must have the wrong number," he said. "No, it's just that I'm already starting to feel like I don't live here anymore. So whether the town changes its name or puts up a high-rise office building on the beach, it doesn't really affect me. If the Folly Bay Committee had won, I would have felt responsible for making a lot of people really unhappy. This is their home, not mine. I wasn't sure Quincy knew what I was talking about. I wasn't too sure myself. "You might want to come back after college, though." He didn't make it a question, but I knew it was. "I don't think so. I'm not the type to live down the street from my mother. Although if you did, you'd asked me last week, I might have said I was." Quincy was quiet for a minute. "How is your mother?" "Oh, she's great. She loves to fight. Now she'll get another year of it." "And how about you? Do you like fighting too?" "No, I don't, Q. Let's not do it anymore." "I'm for that." He sounded relieved, and I realized that was the real reason he had called. He was afraid we were breaking up and didn't want to. Not yet, anyway. "Quincy, I want to change when I go away to school. I don't want to be Mimi Casterson's identical twin. I want to be somebody different, somebody my Scrub Harbor friends wouldn't recognize." He gave a soft laugh. He said, "I'll always recognize me." "You will?" I wasn't sure to be flattered or annoyed. "Sure. At our 25th reunion, I'll be able to pick you up from across the room." I didn't say anything. I couldn't begin to imagine what we'd say in 25 years. After a minute, Quincy continued, "I'll say to my wife, 'See, that woman over there, the pretty one who looks so confident, she used to be my girlfriend.' And my wife will be jealous because after all these years, I haven't forgotten you. You think you know someone, but then they surprise you."